What if I told you the future of your city isn't decided by uh, politicians yelling on the evening news or sweeping national elections?
Right, the stuff that usually grabs the headline.
Exactly. But rather by a mundane 7-page PDF quietly published on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, that's where the real action is.
Today, we are looking at a document that casually rubber stamps $7 million in 30 seconds, legally prepares an entire region for a massive population boom, and, picks a financial street fight with the state government.
All before dinner.
All before dinner. Welcome to today's deep dive. Our source material is a single document. It's the City of Gilroy, California City Council regular meeting agenda for Monday, April 6th, 2026.
Overseen by Mayor Greg Basso.
Right. Now, to you listening, a municipal agenda might sound like a cure for insomnia, but okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to take this dry municipal paperwork and reveal it for what it truly is.
It's a blueprint.
Yeah, a fascinating high-stakes blueprint of how a city actually runs.
Because it is the absolute definition of administrative machinery. And, it's running quietly in the background of our lives at all times.
Completely invisible to most of us.
Exactly. When you look at the underlying programming that makes the cranes move and the asphalt pour, you realize the architecture of a city isn't made of steel. It's made of paper.
Oh, I love that. And you can see that right from the top of the document.
Yeah, the agenda sets the stage before a single word is even spoken in the council chambers. The very first page acts as this meticulous set of instructions, citing the Gilroy Open Government Ordinance.
Just laying down the ground rules.
Right. It establishes a strict 3-minute limit for public comments. It provides QR codes for live written and audio translation in multiple languages and details ADA compliance protocols.
Wow, they really spell it all out.
They do. And this isn't bureaucracy just for the sake of it. This is the literal scaffolding of public access.
You're making sure everyone can actually participate.
Exactly. It ensures that any citizen, regardless of language or physical ability, has a designated avenue to speak before the gavel drops.
It's basically a terms of service agreement, but for democracy.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like you are setting the table before a massive, chaotic family dinner, making sure you know where everyone sits and what language they're speaking before you start serving the food.
Yeah, you have to get the logistics out of the way first.
And speaking of setting the table, the very first real action they take after the Pledge of Allegiance really caught my eye. It's a Fair Housing Month proclamation.
Right. Agenda item 2.1.
Yeah. And the agenda notes that April 2026 marks the 58th anniversary of the 1968 Federal Fair Housing Act.
Which made it illegal to discriminate based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin.
Right. And it also marks the 66th anniversary of California's Fair Employment and Housing Act.
The ferry.
But wait, I'm looking at those dates. 1968. That is a 58-year-old federal law. So what does this all mean? Does a local mayoral proclamation about a 58-year-old federal law actually do anything? Or is it just ceremonial throat clearing before they get to the actual multi-million-dollar budgets?
Well, what's fascinating here is how common it is to dismiss ceremonial items as just pomp and circumstance. But national history and federal law must be maintained and enforced at the local level.
Okay, how so?
I mean, an abstract civil rights law in Washington, D.C. does not mean anything if a landlord in Gilroy is actively discriminating against a family today.
Oh, right. The federal government isn't checking individual apartment listings in Gilroy.
Exactly. The proclamation explicitly states that the city of Gilroy supports efforts to eliminate discrimination by utilizing an organization called Project Sentinel.
Project Sentinel, what do they do?
They're out there educating home seekers and apartment managers on these specific laws and actively investigating complaints of illegal housing discrimination happening within their city limits right now.
Ah, so it's bringing the federal mandate down to the actual street level.
Precisely. It's an active local commitment.
They are putting it on the record that they are policing this within their own borders, which I guess establishes a moral baseline for the rest of the meeting.
It does. And once that baseline is set, the city shifts gears entirely. They move right into the massive operational machinery that keeps the lights on.
Yes. Section 5 of the agenda.
Right. The next major section is an enormous list of actions that the council votes on all at once, in a single motion, completely without debate.
The consent calendar. This is where it gets really interesting to me.
Oh, it's a huge deal.
It reminds me of a smartphone. You know when your phone does those automatic updates at like 3 in the morning?
Yeah, you just wake up and it's done.
Exactly. You wake up and suddenly you have a new operating system, your apps are patched, security is tightened, and all you did was sleep? The consent calendar feels like the automatic updates of a city machine.
That is a perfect analogy.
Huge, vital operations are just happening in the background with a single click, provided no one objects.
And just like an operating system update, the sheer volume of code being installed here is staggering. This one click finalizes a contract amount of over $6.9 million for the FY25 citywide pavement rehabilitation project.
Right, nearly $7 million just approved in a bulk vote.
Yep, just like that. And it also approves budget amendments for a new Type 3 fire engine from BME fire trucks.
A Type 3 engine. Is that one of those massive ladder trucks you see downtown?
No, actually, for context, a Type 3 is a specialized rugged rig designed specifically for wildland or urban interface fires.
Oh, wow. So that tells you a lot about the geography the city is managing.
Exactly, they're dealing with wildfire risks on the city's edges. On top of that, they are approving property improvement agreements for a new data center, specifically Phase 1 off-site improvements.
Off-site improvements. What does that actually mean in this context?
It means before a developer can even build the data center itself, the city is mandating they build out the surrounding infrastructure.
Like roads and stuff?
Exactly. Widening the public roads leading to the facility, upgrading the municipal water lines to handle the cooling systems, installing traffic signals.
Oh, so the city is locking in an agreement that the developer pays to upgrade the public grid to support their massive new private building.
You've got it. That's all happening in this one vote.
So we've got millions in road paving, specialized wildfire engines, and tech infrastructure all bundled together. But I also noticed some very specific personal items buried in that same bulk vote.
Oh, you mean the legal claims?
Yeah. There is a motion to deny a claim filed by a woman named Christina Johnson. Denying someone's claim without any public debate feels incredibly harsh.
I get why it looks that way, but denying a claim on the consent calendar is actually a standard legal maneuver.
Really? How so?
Well, when someone files a liability claim against a city, maybe they tripped on a sidewalk or a city trash truck clipped their car, the city council will routinely deny it in this bulk vote to formally move the dispute out of the council chambers.
Oh, I see. Where does it go then?
It goes into the court system or over to the city's insurance providers. So it is entirely procedural, not necessarily personal.
Which really highlights how much invisible work happens before Monday night.
Absolutely. It raises a vital point about municipal government routine doesn't mean unimportant.
Right.
That $6.9 million pavement project represents months, probably years, of engineering studies, competitive bidding, staff reports, and committee reviews.
So by the time it hits this agenda, the rigorous debate has already happened behind closed doors.
Exactly. Paving roads and buying fire engines is the most tangible way citizens experience government. We don't experience the committee meetings, We experience the smooth road.
So if the consent calendar is the automatic update for the routine infrastructure, the next phase of the meeting is where the council actually has to design the future of the city?
Right. The bids, proposals, and new business.
And looking at the scale of the contracts they're proposing, the future looks incredibly expensive.
It really does. This is the forward-looking part of the agenda where the active debate actually takes place.
Okay, what are they debating?
Well, they are looking at a $372,690 contract to a group called Pros Consulting.
$372,000 just for what?
Just to do an assessment of their recreation division.
Wow.
Yeah, but the most revealing item is the authorization of 4 massive on-call contracts for building and fire plan review and inspection services.
Oh, I saw those.
Yeah, they are contracting with 4Leaf, CSG Consultants, TRB Plus Associates, and True North Compliance Services. The ceiling for these contracts is a staggering $2 million each.
Wait, $2 million each? That is a potential $8 million just for reviewing blueprints and doing building inspections. Why on earth would a city spend that much money just to look at plans?
It is the ultimate barometer for a city's economic activity.
Hmm.
I mean, a local government doesn't authorize up to $8 million for outside building inspectors unless their internal city staff is completely overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed by what?
By the sheer volume of new construction, remodeling, and commercial development coming down the pipeline.
Ah, so they are staffing up for a massive boom.
They are, but they are doing it strategically. Notice that these are on-call contracts.
Right, meaning what exactly?
It means the city only spends the money as developers actually submit the plans, and the developer fees generally cover the costs.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a way to handle a massive influx of building permits without hiring 50 full-time city employees who might just sit idle if the real estate market suddenly cools off.
Smart. But all this incoming growth creates a massive problem. I mean, more buildings mean more people.
Definitely.
And more people mean you need more police, more firefighters, more water infrastructure, and more wear and tear on those newly paved roads. So how do they actually pay to run the expanded city?
That brings us directly to the finance items.
Mm.
Item 7.4. The acting finance director, Harjot Sangha, is asking the council to consider placing a potential sales tax ballot measure on the November 2026 election ballot.
So they're going to ask the voters for more money.
Right. And the council has to debate whether to pursue it as a general tax or a special sales tax.
Okay, let's unpack that difference. Why does it matter to the average voter if it's general or special? It's all just extra tax on a cup of coffee, right?
It feels that way at the register, but the mechanics behind them are entirely different. And it's a huge political calculation for the city council.
How so?
Well, a general tax goes straight into the city's general fund and can be used for absolutely anything. Salaries, parks, pensions, you name it.
Complete flexibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because it's flexible, state law says it only needs a simple majority 50% plus one vote to pass.
Okay, and a special tax.
A special tax is legally locked in a vault for a specific use, like road repair or hiring new police officers. The voters know exactly what they are buying.
That sounds more appealing to a voter.
It is, but because of that guarantee, state law requires a special tax to hit a two-thirds supermajority to pass.
Oof. 66.6%. That is a high bar in any election.
Right. So the city council has to decide, do we want the flexibility of a general tax that's easier to pass, or do we promise the voters a specific service with a special tax, but risk failing entirely if we only get 65% of the vote?
Exactly the dilemma. Local taxes are the primary fuel for all this growth. But what happens when the local government has to fight the state government to keep that fuel?
Yeah, that tension is a huge part of municipal work.
Because that is exactly what we see in the next major agenda item, item 7.1. City Administrator Matt Morley is proposing a formal letter of opposition to the High-Speed Rail Authority regarding their use of tax increment financing.
Yes, the TIF. This is a fascinating item.
Wait, high-speed rail is a massive multi-billion-dollar state-level project in California. Why is a local city council stepping in to oppose the financing of a statewide infrastructure project?
Okay, to understand this, we have to look purely at the mechanics of the tax code. We aren't looking at the politics of the high-speed rail itself here.
Right, we're not taking sides on whether the train is a good idea or a bad idea.
Exactly. Whether it's the future of green transit or a logistical nightmare is a separate debate entirely. What we are analyzing here is how the specific financing method, tax increment financing, or TIF, inherently creates tension between state projects and local municipal survival.
Okay, so how does TIF actually work?
Under tax increment financing, a baseline of property tax revenue is established in a specific geographic area, say a 1-mile radius around a proposed new train station in Gilroy.
Got it. The city says, we currently make X amount of tax money from this area.
Right. And the city continues to receive that baseline amount of tax money every year. However, as the massive new train station is built and the surrounding area becomes highly desirable, property values naturally skyrocket.
Which means property taxes go up.
Exactly. But that increment, the massive wave of new extra tax revenue generated by those rising property values, does not go to the local city.
Wait, really? Where does it go?
It gets captured by the state authority to pay off the bonds that funded the train station in the first place.
Oh, wow. I see the trap.
It's a huge issue for local governments.
Gilroy looks at this and says, if our downtown gets revitalized by this station, we are going to have a massive influx of visitors and new residents. We are going to need more trash collection, emergency responders, and water lines to support all these new people.
Yes.
But the state is siphoning off the exact new tax money we would normally use to pay for those vital local services.
You nailed it. The city is left holding the bag for the plumbing while the state captures the profit.
That is wild.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the council isn't necessarily debating the existence of the train in this specific item. They are aggressively defending their own economic borders.
They are sending a message to the state.
Right. They're saying you cannot mandate a massive regional project in our backyard and then capture the future tax growth to pay for it, starving the local municipality of the resources it needs to support that very project.
It's a classic jurisdictional turf war. And, it makes you realize that dealing with state authorities, preparing for a building boom, and negotiating infrastructure feels less like managing a single, isolated town.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels more like these council members are diplomats deployed to a dozen different sovereign nations.
And if you look at Agenda Item 4, the Reports of Council Members section, you see just how accurate that diplomat analogy is.
Yes, the committee assignments.
The agenda lists the external committee assignments for Mayor Bozo and the 6 council members, Bracco, Klein, Fugazi, Hilton, Marquez, and Ramirez. They don't just sit in a room in Gilroy.
I was marveling at that list. They are assigned to external boards like the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency, the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority,
The Caltrain Policy Group, the VTA Mobility Partnership.
and even the Gilroy Gardens Board of Directors.
Because you cannot manage a modern city as an island. The air quality doesn't stop at the city limit.
And the water supply certainly doesn't.
Right. Traffic on the highway doesn't care where Gilroy ends and the next town begins. The decisions a council member helps make at the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority directly dictate the power grid options and the utility rates that will be debated back in the Gilroy Council chambers the very next month.
Wow, it's all so incredibly interconnected.
A city is completely tethered to the broader region. What happens with environmental habitats or regional transit in Gilroy affects the entire Santa Clara Valley.
So they have to negotiate with their neighbors for literally everything that keeps the lights on and the water flowing, which requires some serious human capital.
Yes, you need the right people running this extremely complicated machine.
And that leads perfectly into the final puzzle piece of this agenda. At the very end of this document, item 10.1, the council goes into a closed session to discuss a public employee appointment for a new finance director.
Which actually connects back to the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, right, on the consent calendar.
Yep. Earlier, the current acting finance director, Harjot Sanka, was formally appointed to assistant city administrator. He got promoted to help run the broader city operations.
Which instantly leaves a massive vacancy in the role that manages the millions of dollars in paving contracts, the $8 million inspection budgets, and the high-speed rail tax fights we just talked about.
Someone has to run all that math.
But why do they have to hire for it in a closed session? I mean, if the very first page of the agenda preaches about open government and the public's right to view decisions, why hide the hiring process?
It seems contradictory, but closed sessions are a legally required exception to the Open Government Ordinance, specifically designed to protect human capital.
Okay, that's so.
You legally cannot debate sensitive personnel matters, like hiring or firing, in a public forum. Think about the mechanics of executive hiring. The best candidates for this finance director job are likely currently employed as finance directors in other neighboring cities.
Ah, I see where this is going.
If a candidate's current employer finds out they are interviewing in Gilroy because their name was read aloud in a public city council broadcast, it causes absolute chaos for that person's career and their current city's financial stability.
It prevents market panic. You can't broadcast that you're poaching top-tier financial talent from a neighboring town until the ink is dry on the contract.
Exactly. It proves that behind all the PDFs, the legal ordinances, and the massive infrastructure budgets, finding and protecting the right human capital is the only way this incredibly complex web continues to function.
Okay, let's take a breath and look back at the ground we've just covered. From a single, mundane municipal agenda, the kind of paperwork most people would scroll past without a second thought, we have traced the legacy of 1960s civil rights and how they are actively investigated today.
We watched nearly $7 million of road paving get installed with the silent efficiency of a smartphone update.
Right. We uncovered the mechanical preparations for a massive building boom. We watched a local city throw a financial punch at a state-level high-speed rail authority over tax increments. And we saw the complex diplomatic web that council members navigate every single month across the Santa Clara Valley.
The ultimate takeaway from this deep dive is that local government is where the abstract ideas of society become concrete reality.
Yeah, literally concrete in the case of those roads.
Exactly. We debate national politics constantly. We argue about federal laws and sweeping state initiatives. But the city council agenda is where those broad concepts actually hit the pavement.
It is the most impactful level of government on your day-to-day life.
Without a doubt. It dictates the water coming from your tap, the safety of the building you work in, the taxes on your morning coffee, and the quality of the road you drive on.
It really is the invisible architecture of our lives. And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to chew on as we wrap up. Next time you drive over a stretch of freshly paved asphalt, or you hear a new specialized fire engine siren wailing in the distance, ask yourself what invisible Friday afternoon paperwork and what Monday night 6:00 p.m. consent calendar vote made that happen in your own city.
The architecture's always there, running quietly in the background.
You just have to know how to read the code.